This is the CTX 1300 Deluxe from Honda, made only 1 year in 2014. And today, we're going to give it our first impressions. So starting with the looks, as always, this bike looks very sporty, but at the same time has a bagger look because of the full saddlebags and top case. I really like the looks. The tank going into the dash looks very long. It's a little bit odd looking at first, but I think the lines look very nice. The seat is absolutely massive when you're just looking at it. It's the widest seat I've seen on a motorcycle, and the passenger seat is as big as most rider seats on other motorcycles. It does have a extended windshield here. The regular CTX has a short windshield, but this has the bigger one. And it has mirrors that are similar to car mirrors rather than motorcycle mirrors. They're not mounted to the handlebars like most motorcycle mirrors. They're mounted to the front fairing. As I just mentioned, this bike does have a 3-bag setup. This is all key match, so the key that goes in the ignition is the key that unlocks both saddlebags and the top case. There is tons of room in both the side cases and obviously a ton of room in the top case as well. The foot pegs are nice and big, and they have a big piece of rubber. The passenger foot pegs are about the same size as the rider foot pegs, and they also have that nice big piece of rubber on them. This bike specifically does have highway pegs that fold out for your full foot, and the brake and shifting lever on this bike are a really good size. They're not too big and they're not too small. They feel really good when you ride. So sitting on the bike right now, I am 6'4", and you can tell this is exactly a standard riding position. This is not forward at all. This is not back at all. My back is straight. My leg is at 90 degrees, and it's very comfortable. The handlebars are nice and wide, and they're swept back and down a little bit, so it makes the arm position very comfortable. Definitely not stretching. My arms are just relaxed. On the left-hand control, we do have our clutch here, our high beams, our horn, and blinker, which is auto-canceling. On the right-hand side, we have our front brake, our ignition on and off, our hazard lights, and the engine start. All right, now moving on to the dash. Right below the dash, on top of the gas tank, we do have two little cubbies here, little pockets. You push down, and one pops up, and that has a USB plug-in for the built-in audio system for this bike. And right below that cubby, there is a power button for the audio, a selector button for the menu of the dash, and a set button for your trip miles. On the left side, there's another little cubby. Pop that up, and you'll see there's a wire in there, which is for a battery tender. And below that, you can turn traction control off, and you can adjust your audio settings on the left side. And in the middle, slightly lower, is where the gas tank is. There is a little key right under my leg here on the left side of the bike that pops this up. But getting to the actual dash of the motorcycle, you can see it has a digital screen in the middle, and then RPMs and miles per hour to analog displays on the sides. We do have some lights further away, our traction control, ABS on the right, and oil and check engine on the left, since the bike is not started. Having the two analog displays of miles per hour and RPMs is very nice. It's very easy to read. It looks like a lot of car dashes, so this makes it very intuitive. And the center screen shows a variety of things at the top, but you can see there is a clock, there is instant fuel, average speed, trip time, and you can choose to have nothing. And on the bottom, we have total miles, trip A, trip B, air temperature outside, and then total miles again. And below that, we have the engine cold hot, and you have your fuel gauge right below that, which is very easy to see. And an interesting fact about this bike is it does not show the range left in your tank until you get to like the last bar of the fuel gauge. Then it will tell you roughly how many miles left you have for a range. All right, let's take this thing for a ride. All right, let's start this bad boy up.
The engine does have a little bit of grit to it. The seating position while riding, very comfortable. Vibration while riding, on the handlebars, nothing. Mirrors, nothing. Seat, nothing. And foot pegs, nothing. Basically no vibration in this bike at all. The throttle is very smooth. It's not twitchy. You can tell it has power, but it doesn't feel like it's right at the tip of your fingers. You definitely have to turn the throttle to feel the full power. It's not just waiting to go like some other bikes.
Coming to a stop, I have to put my foot out a little bit wider than I'm used to.
But once you do it a couple times, it's no big deal. The shifting, so far, very smooth. The clutch, very smooth. It's not too far out, it's not too close. Feels very appropriate. The engine braking on this bike is very good, so as soon as you let off the throttle, you will slow down. This bike basically has everything I'm looking for. It's got a bunch of power, can carry a passenger very comfortable, can carry a lot of things with you. It's a near perfect seating position. I mentioned the seat for the rider is extremely large in my initial thoughts portion, and while riding you can feel the difference between this and other bikes. This seat is extremely comfortable. The dash while riding, the RPMs and miles per hour are just about perfect, very easy to read, front and center. They're not spaced too far apart. It's very good. The digital screen in the middle is pretty good. The text is nice and visible most of the time.
When you slow down on this bike, you would think, this weighs about 750 pounds, you would think that you would feel all the weight coming to a stop, and you don't. It's really not that bad. I've recently ridden the 2024 Indian Pursuit, and that was one of my big complaints was every time I came to a stop, all of the weight of the bike, you could feel it. And on this one, it doesn't really feel like that.
So this bike does have the instant miles per gallon and average for the ride. And right now we're averaging about 36, and we're hitting about 4,000 RPMs, going up to the 42s. If you baby this thing and get those RPMs around 2,500 consistently, this can average over 50, 60 miles per gallon. But if you're riding to have fun and not paying attention, you're probably going to average somewhere around 40. Probably my favorite thing about this bike is its nimbleness. It's 750 pounds, like I mentioned, but just touching either handlebar and you fall right over. It's something that I feel Honda does really well, is they balance their bikes really well. So when you go to counter steer, it's effortless. Barely touching anything, and it falls right over. I do have traffic on both sides of me, so I'm not trying to do it too much.
This bike has a lot of upsides and almost no downsides. For me, a downside would be that it just doesn't have that same feeling of excitement that some bikes give you, which
not everybody wants to be excited all the time. Some people want a nice bike that they can just cruise on, but when you need the power, it has it. And that's exactly what this is. Checks all the boxes. So the Deluxe model does have a few things that the standard CTX1300 does not come with, and that is ABS, traction control, auto canceling blinkers, and a built-in audio system.
Just finished riding the CTX1300 Deluxe, and it checks all the boxes, like I said in the test ride. The only downside I would say this bike has is it doesn't have that feeling of excitement at the tip of your fingers. If you want the power, it's there. You just twist the throttle and it's right there. But it doesn't feel like it's right there. And so it doesn't give you that feeling. Everything else is great. Tons of storage, extremely comfortable, great wind protection, great dash, smooth shifting, smooth braking, huge foot pedals. So let's talk price on this. This bike was made one time in 2014, and they put it out with a retail price of $17,500, I believe, for the Deluxe model. And it did not sell very well. That's why it was only made 1 year. They did have to discount these significantly for them to sell. A lot of them sat on the showroom floor for several years. And would I buy this bike for $17,500? Probably not, because there are a lot of options for $17,500, especially nowadays. This was built, 10 years ago. But the used market for these is very good. So if you look for used CTX1300s, Deluxe or standard models, you're looking between $6,000 and $10,000, and most of them have very low miles. This one specifically has 6,200 miles roughly. And would I buy it for that price, 6,000 to 10,000? In fact, I would, and I did. This is my motorcycle. And like I said, it checks all the boxes I want, except that little bit of excitement that I'm looking for. Other than that, perfect bike. And I think it's well worth the price on the used market right now. If you guys have any questions about this bike, please leave them down in the comments. And if you want to see what I'm talking about, when I'm talking about that exciting feeling, check out this video right here of the BMW S1000 XR. And if you want to see me test ride a bunch of bikes, a bunch of different sizes and brands, click this playlist right here.
Rapping when they own me to sing on. They all want an album, so I gave them 20 singles. Yeah, I'm trying to get a hit, that's why I swing.